the podcast of podcasts. And episode we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about consciousness and states of consciousness and why it's incredibly important, especially during this time period. Because at this point, this is like not an ability or a capability we should be hiding or we should be not expressing in any way, shape, or form. Because for a long time, we have been told that life is mundane and that the 3D is all there is. Up, work, sleep, home, TV, bed, all of that stuff. And that's just, it's a huge lie. And the concept of the psychic ability or the capability of seeing into the realm of the spirits is not, it's not science fiction. It's not fiction. As a matter of fact, human beings walk between the realms all the time. It's just we need to build up that awareness. What is the spirit realm? What is the realm of the 3D? So the third density that we're used to seeing, the physical realm, is what it sounds like. It's very dense. It's heavy. It's very mundane. It just doesn't seem at all spectacular. I mean, you do see nature, you do see the beauty of every day, but at the same time, you're just not actually aware of what's going on. So when you do upgrade your awareness via affirmations, and that is the best way to go about it, you can combine it with meditation, you can combine it with music, you can combine it with art, and definitely write everything down. I have to tie down all of my knowledge in order for it to really sink in that what's happening is actually happening. So I started to do affirmations, and they're verbal. You hear really great affirmations all the time. You hear, I'm very grateful. And you should definitely say, I am grateful. I am blessed. Today's going to be a great day. Today's going to be a gift. All of these things are really great to do, and they're really great to start your day with. But the ultimate affirmations, in order to get the process really started, are one of two things. And I will talk about why I use this terminology and why it's very important that you do. We are souls. Now, I am talking to people with a soul. I won't get into, in this podcast, I'm not going to get into the concept of non-souls. We're just going to talk about the soulful here. And soul is source consciousness. So we're talking about source, we're talking about space, we're talking about energy. So this energy is source. So the main thing here that I really circled right here is that creation, creating, and creator are the quintessential terms you're going to think of when you think of source consciousness or source energy. Abraham Hicks talks about this all the time, and she's very spot on. So there are other sources on this. Alan Watts knows what he's talking about. Terence McKenna knows what he's talking about. There are some plastic shamans out there. Yes, there are people out there who are giving out disinformation. There are people out there who are doing anything and everything to confuse us to the point where we don't know what's up or what's down. The truth is actually super simple. The simpler, the better. Now, that isn't to say you shouldn't have fun and have a bunch of pieces to go together to make a simple picture. But simple is how we have to keep it in order to succeed, because confusion and complication is the main reason why human beings got to the point of where we ended up, and that's just being the Walking Dead, for what it's worth. The Walking Dead, the zombie movies, they're just basically telling us what the third dimension is. So creation, creator, creating, a creator. I am the most blessed source is a good affirmation. I am the most blessed God or goddess is also a good affirmation. And it does seem a little bit much since we grew up with the concept of an external God, when in reality the souls are creators. We create our reality. We have the pineal gland. We project our reality. So when our energy is being taken, being used by other sources that aren't so benevolent, we start to lose our creativeness, and then we become more and more miserable, and then we feel like we can't get that feeling back. So over time, after multiple incarnations, we forget who we are. We forget we are creation. We are creators, and we do have full autonomy, and we have full power. So via these affirmations, I found that immediately I woke up. Immediately when I used the I am the most blessed God affirmation, I woke up pretty quick after about 45 minutes of doing those affirmations. You can also use I am the most blessed source. It doesn't matter. All that matters is that you're acknowledging your soul and what your soul is capable of and your soul's divinity. So that goes back to a lot of spiritualities. The Native Americans knew about the soul and the power of creation. They knew about the spirit realm and how the spirit realm is the real realm, not the realm of the dead that we've been convinced is, in fact, the realm of what is reality. Things get extremely bizarre once you start waking up, I won't lie, because we've been brainwashed. So I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. I know I am the most blessed source is probably one of the best affirmations you can ever use. The I know affirms the affirmation. And I found that I have greatly balanced myself, adding the I know part in the front. It sounds cringy. It sounds strange. Record yourself doing that. Record yourself saying that and listen to it daily, and you'll notice some changes. So what will happen is you will notice that you can go into astral. How do you know you're in astral? It's you have to, that's where the psychic awareness or the psychic knowledge comes in. You will feel lighter, and for all intents and purposes, it's going to look like the third dimension. You are going to be able to read minds. Now, this is where the psychic awareness is super important, because you could be reading minds all the time and you don't even know it. You think you're just talking to the person. I will talk to somebody one day. This happened to me since I was a kid. I would talk to somebody, would have this wonderful conversation, and then the next day they would be like, it never happened. They had no idea. And I thought, what am I doing wrong? Am I scaring them off? I would bring up something and it would freak them out. They'd be like, what the hell? So in hindsight, I do realize that I was reading their minds and they were freaking out about the fact that I knew stuff. I didn't mean to come off that way. I really didn't. But then as I started to wake up via the affirmations, I noticed the change. Think of Lucifer when he goes up to the person and he says, tell me, what is it you desire? There's a brief pause, and then all of a sudden the person just starts spilling it. That's kind of what it looks like. That's kind of what it looks like. But that's what it looks like once you gain the awareness. Otherwise, it's seamless. So one day somebody will be like, hey, I talk to me. It's really great. It's great talking to you. And they'll tell me stories about their lives. And the next day they'll be running off. And I'll be like, I didn't understand this for the longest time. So that's what it looks like. Your mouth moves, everything. But then when you wake up, you notice anomalies. Like all of a sudden, I saw the walls pulsating. That's where I noticed there was like a purple aura in the background. And now I'm starting to see the tells. So that's what's going to happen the more you wake up. You may very well be reading minds already. It's not what the movies show. It's not like you're like sitting there doing just speaking to each other's brain. You feel like you're talking to the person, and I'll explain what I think is going on. I go up to you and I go ahead and say, hey, Jordan, how's it going? And then I look away, look back, and all of a sudden you're telling me the story of your life. And then you walk away. I'm trying to figure out how I'm having this whole conversation without the person knowing that. Well, it's probably because there's a time freeze. And that conversation is happening in a split second. It gets bizarre. Okay. Now understand that it's to the point now where it's become so amplified in my life that I just have to talk about it. So it's like that will happen in astral. That will happen with soulful people. So soulful people. Otherwise, you're just going to get to see behind the curtain in a way, and people will not be able to get under your skin the way they used to. You will in a way, once you get to a fifth density sort of consciousness, the realm of the people who are out to harm you just seems to melt away, because then you are now outside their consciousness. And that's just a whole nother thing. So let me explain how the psychic abilities work. It isn't what the movies disclose a lot, and they are very useful, but they also kind of interpret things in a way that make us question. It will make you wonder what's really going on. Like, you'll be like, well, am I reading this person's mind, or am I reading this sign right? Thoughts do not come off as words. Thoughts come off as actions. So once you go into fifth density, you will start communicating with yourself in the forms of signs and symbols and actions. Think of like Rafiki in The Lion King. This is totally spot on. When he's in his tree and a tuft of Simba's hair blows in the wind and he grabs onto it, he looks at it and he says, Simba is alive. So that's how it works. You will start having things happen around you, and you must interpret and decode these symbols in order to determine what it is the universe, your universe, is trying to tell you. So that's how I will oftentimes know about things in advance. That's how I will oftentimes be able to interpret an otherwise uninterpretable situation in the third dimension. So they come down to feelings ultimately. Everything's a feeling. Your brain is useful, but it also is a huge deterrent, because overthinking will actually stop you from realizing the truth about what the situation really is. Your destiny is not fixed. Now, the thing is, the reason why we have to interpret these signs and symbols is because, 1, free will. 2, destiny is not set. You call the shots. You call the shots in your own destiny. So if you interpret it, you interpret it basically how it is, but you also can interpret it the way you want to. So you will also start to notice your spirit guides. They have probably been around you for a long time. You just thought they were normal people. They will speak through other people, or they'll just manifest altogether as a totally different person. Once you start waking up more in the astral realm, they will become extremely obvious, because you'll start to see who's fake and who's real. They will stand out as being real. Yep. Souls will stand out as being real. And then the people who are not so real will become extremely obvious too, almost automatons, robotic. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes we get into fights with or use up all our energy on people who just merely suck out that energy and are not, for all intents and purposes, real. But we will get into that into another podcast, because it's best to just do this piecemeal. So think of all the shamans from movies. Grandmaster Oogway, Rafiki, Mowat. They are extremely kind. Mowat's a bit stern. We'll get into the concept of male-female energy in another podcast, because this is enough information just as is. But do you notice that they're extremely kind individuals? Like Grandmaster Oogway is a super kind old turtle.
Oh, he's amazing. Love him.
He's amazing. But do you notice he's also extremely feared? So the thing is that, yes, the darkness fears the light. So the kinder you become, the actually more powerful you are. The more loving you become, the more powerful you are, because that love frequency it insulates you. So then you don't feel the darkness. Rather, you can observe it. So when you start down your spiritual path, when you start to wake up, you observe everything. Everything's trying to tell you something. I've been in situations where I had to basically be in the position of somebody else, had to live their lives, walk in their shoes. That can happen. That can happen depending on what path you're taking. And it's just like, sometimes you'll experience situations over and over and over again until you get the message. And that's what you hear that all the time when you're in third density consciousness, even fourth density density consciousness. My God. But yeah, and that's another point. Try to have fun with this, because it's ultimately a game if you think about it. But
we'll take it too seriously. Even the spiritual battle that's going on right now, you've got to kind of stand back and look at it from afar, or else it'll pull you in, you know what I mean? You've got to have I think with all this stuff, spiritual, physical, you've got to have it's all about being in the right mindset to accept it. So when, like you were saying before about the changes you start seeing once you start making this shift, you'll only basically experience what you're currently open to, like what you can handle, what level you've attained. Yeah,
and you elevate based on, I can get into a whole nother podcast about how it is you actually elevate, because that's a whole nother rabbit hole. You elevate by really caring about somebody or someone or some people to the point where it's like you're willing to do anything and everything for them. That's when you're at a point where you're ready to actually face the darkness, and that's a whole nother subject matter. But yeah, so affirmations are key. You could say I'm a blessed source. You can say I love myself. Even just affirm that verbally and write it down. Actually write down everything you see. I didn't do that at the beginning, and things still happen, but it actually just it solidifies in your mind what's real, because I'm telling you, once you start to wake up, you're going to be tested in every way, shape, and form as well, to see if you can listen to your heart instead of listening to your brain. Although the brain is important, because the pineal gland does secrete dimethyltryptamine. So that's another very essential molecule with which to see into astral. I find it hard to hear in astral sometimes. I can see very well, but hearing, it's almost like they're like talking like this. I'm just like leaning in, and they're like looking at me like the people, the spirits are speaking through. It sounds, and I'm telling you, horror movies really distort the psychic ability. Lorraine Warren was 100% real. I will tell you that. There's been a back and forth about whether or not the Warrens are real. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that they were real. And she really did what she did. She was somebody who specifically would put herself in a position, a very dire position, to face these, you can call them demons, but I just call them dark energy. And it's just like these dark entities, she would actually go into the astral form. You see it in the movies. They actually depict that fairly decently well. And she would take them on head on to save somebody or help somebody. And it's just like it's a transmutation thing. And then Ed would be sort of the one there to help bring her down from it.
Yep.
So she was 100% real. They really presented it in a super dark way that actually makes the whole concept way scarier than it ever has to be. But then you have Doctor Strange that presents it in a much more light-sided way with the mirror realm and the fourth dimensional realm. So the mirror realm is the third density. It's like looking in a mirror. This is your life. Mm-hmm. Your life looks like this because of what's happening in the astral body. The astral body is your soul and your body together. So our consciousness is split amongst multiple consciousnesses. It's that we've been taught that it's just one consciousness and one body at all times, and that's totally not real. And it explains why we get energy drain. It explains why we're miserable oftentimes if we're not aware. And it explains why we just can't we always are in a state of feeling like, where's our mojo? Like, why can't we do this? Why can so-and-so, do so well, and we're just struggling along here? So it's just like, at no point should we ever feel like we're capable of anything less than greatness. So it's just like, that's what I'm waking up to, and I've always been very psychic. It's just the awareness started to dwindle over time, because that's what it's built to break your psychic awareness. We're told that it's not normal to be psychic. We're told it's not normal to have these experiences, and that there's something mentally wrong with you if you do. When in reality, it's the norm. And people who are propagating this concept, the ones in charge, so to speak, are the ones who are trying to take away our capabilities of understanding that this is real. What you're seeing is real. I've seen stuff disappear in front of me. I've seen people disappear in front of me. I've seen objects move on their own. The things I've seen it's so immense that I have to write it. I have to write a book, and it's only been a couple of months since I started the affirmations. So the affirmations will unlock this awareness pretty quick. Like, you'll wake up pretty much right away. You just want to keep the affirmations up, because your third dimensional mind will interpret things differently than the soul. So the soul needs to be reminded, and the soul knows what's best. The soul eyes will take care of you for what it's worth. You just have to trust yourself and believe in yourself and have fun with it. I can be very serious. That's the whole thing here, is that it's like it's serious, but it's also paradoxically not serious. Like the less serious you take it, the better it is. And it's just very nice for me to be able to express this. So that's basically how I'm doing it. I see spirit speaking through other people, acting things out, and I interpret what it means. And it's pretty cool. So it's all about decoding. Yep, I've seen it. I'll have stuff fall on the floor, and I have to say, if it's like 2 items fall on the floor, I have to determine what the 2 represents. I have to determine what the 3 represents. Every time I reached a different level where I felt like I was more aware, my dog would go and stand on the butterfly mat as almost a symbolic gesture of saying, look, you bloomed a little bit more. My communication with animals has been top notch. I went to this random farm with a whole bunch of horses, and they all just walked over to me and like stuck their head underneath the fence, and I was just petting them and just like cuddling with them like they were dogs. So it was just like, yeah, it's amazing, like what you start to unlock the more you start to wake up to it. The way I see it, it's just something that needs to be discussed more. And that's why we're doing this podcast. So do tell about your experience, because I'm really excited to know about your experience.
All right. Well, it's interesting because the trip was a few days ago, but the journey leading to that started about 5 days before that.
Wow.
Essentially, I went out to work on a farm and met this other guy there, really cool. But just as we started talking, we went out into the field, and what can I say? I look up in the sky, and there's a craft literally just sitting there, and I'm just like, whoa. And I've only just met this guy. I don't want to draw attention to it, and I don't want to seem crazy, so I'm just kind of quiet about it.
That's what they make us feel. Yeah, go on.
I didn't know what to even say, and then by the time I got around to feeling, look, this guy better just see that this thing's here, because I'm seeing it, it was gone. So that's kind of how my week started. Now, this same guy ended up giving me magic mushrooms, which is something I've been after for ages. Mm-hmm. And then a few days later, we get this big eclipse event, which is, one of these cosmic gate sort of checkpoints. Essentially, it's basically a convergence of soul energy, like basically a funneling of your soul at a certain part. It's basically focusing you again on whatever your new calling is, or whatever your new life path. Anyway, my mate was down to do the mushies with me, but we didn't really have enough, so he was like, oh well, there was only enough for a decent, the amount he gave me was basically enough for one person, like pretty much the perfect size dose. So he's like, oh, trip sit ya. And I wasn't sure how you even keep these things, because you put your mushrooms in the fridge and they're like dead a day or 2 later. They're moldy lumps of crap. Like, so yeah, I was right. Like, and he was telling me, mate, you got to do them like sooner rather than later. And the kookaburras in the background there, having a great time. Can you hear
it? Yeah, they're so cute.
Oh, mate, they're pretty cool. Anyway, so. And he was like, oh, you got to have them quick, because the magic will fade. And I'm like, shit, because I'm just flat out, and I don't want to do that stuff around children. So I'm like, I've got to try and find some time away. And the weather's been absolutely terrible. It's been raining heaps. Like, man, I don't know if it's going to happen. Like, they might die beforehand, but everything ended up falling into place. And I went around his and began the journey, and man, I can tell why they call it a trip, because you sit there and you can be in one place the entire time. I was out looking at the just out in nature, looking over his backyard. We've got massive sea of clouds, trees, like just beautiful natural imagery. So I sat out there. But you've been in one place for, 4 to 5 hours, but you feel like you've taken this epic journey, like. And basically, to me, it comes in waves, and it felt a lot like DMT, but drawn out over a long period of time, and it kind of eases you into it and then eases you out of it quite gently, and really gives you the time and the space to mull on things, which is just amazing, because compared to DMT, which just it basically just gives you so much stuff. It is literally that Doctor Strange fly through the universe. It's like that, and it's like, here you go, bye, off, see ya, done. Whereas Mushies is like, okay, we're going to go on a journey, and I'm going to show you some stuff and teach you some stuff, and you're actually going to have this time to process it, because DMT, it just, so much happens in that so fast that you just kind of left flabbergasted, you're gobsmacked, you're like, what did I just witness? Like, what was all that?
Right, but, yeah, because it's multiple steps that you just kind of, you don't, go on, yeah.
Being shot out into hyperspace, and then you just drop back in your body again, you're just like, whoa. But the Mushies are really interesting because, and I was talking about this with my mate at the time, that the whole nausea factor, and everyone talks about this. They're like, oh, mate, they're good, but that nausea, like that sickness in the belly is just terrible. And, a lot of people do end up vomiting and having a big purge session, or they end up shitting themselves. Like, it can happen just because it feels, it's quite intense on the stomach. But I realized very early on that that's actually a feature of the mushrooms. It's it's basically designed to sit you on your ass, because I tried to get up and walk around at certain times during it, and it's like, no, you sit down, pay attention, be still. Like, it doesn't want you walking around, it doesn't want you distracting yourself. And I realized that's the reason for it right there, is that this thing definitely has an intelligence to it, and it's trying to tell you to sit the fuck down and pay attention, because when I did that, I didn't feel nauseous. But it's in the
very interesting
mechanic, yes. Just like the fact that they die pretty quickly and that their magic runs out is another inbuilt mechanic to essentially get you to take it. Don't put it off. Don't let fear stop you doing it. It's basically now or never. So you've got to do this when it's presented to you. Like, you can't escape it, or you don't get to do it at all. So that's another, again, genius, natural, God source created inbuilt intelligence in the thing. And so it teaches you a lot about yourself. Extremely, the introversion it gives you is amazing. Like, you can basically look at your own mind and see what's working and not working, what parts of your life are dysfunctional and causing issues. And you basically see you're given the steps you need to take for your soul to flourish. It's giving you the how can I explain it? It's very difficult to explain, and it'll become even more difficult as I continue, because it gives you it gives you the life path that you should be on. Like, it shows you that there is a very tangible, definite place that your life should be. It's helping you realize who you truly are.
Yep.
Anyway, as it continues, it kind of ramps up, keeps going up like a roller coaster up to a peak, and then it goes down again. That's kind of how most psychedelics seem to roll, and the mushrooms are no different. And the peak was essentially, I just couldn't help but shut my eyes, and I was shown really interesting, very, very DMT-like visuals.
Nice.
And for me, they are like organic membranes but sort of liquid at the same time, kind of flowing into one another. And I kept kind of watching it, and it kind of ramped up, and I started kind of getting a feminine energy from these strange curving forms that were kind of curving and morphing into one another. And as I kind of looked closer, I could see this bright light within, and that's when it went to the next level, because I started focusing on this just gorgeous light. Like, it's kind of, the visuals are very dark, but kind of like with neon sort of highlighting.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, very difficult to like, you can see if you go DMT visuals in Google Images, you can kind of see what it looks like, but it doesn't really describe it. Like, it's still very different from that, but that's probably the closest thing to it. But it kind of ramped up as I saw this light, and then I saw that it was coming from within this mass of like tentacles, but they were like curled sort of forms, like forming into one another, like kind of like a
octopus,
but also kind of like a brain. But it was kind of
like a neuron, like a neuron
were
in the brain,
unfurling in every direction. And where I looked at these threads, these tentacles, these, these massive forms, they were actually like symbols or words. And at the very time I was looking at this, a Terence McKenna quote that I read the other night, a few nights previous to this, popped into my head about language. Slave language and master language were the words that I heard looking at this thing, and the vibe I got from it was that it was kind of both taunting me and kind of humbling me, but it was essentially begging me to try and explain what the hell it even was. Like, this is this amazing hyper complex being or form that's kind of like a god octopus sort of vibe, and it's like just begging me to try and explain it. Like, it's beyond our language or anything that we can even describe. So
cool.
I woke up from that and I was just like, whoa. And then, yeah, it kind of petered down from there. That was essentially the peak of it. But after that, prior to this, my mate had been smoking weed, and he kind of said, you don't want to do that. Like, I don't want you to smoke as well during this, because I don't know how to affect it, because it can make it better, or it can make it worse. And he was like, I don't want to throw something else into your first experience, you know what I mean? But afterwards he was like, no, I want to see what this does. So I had one, and it got dark really, really quickly. Like, prior to this, I was laughing most of the time, crying at just how beautiful the clouds were and the trees were, just absolutely in awe of nature. And then I went to this very, very dark place very quickly, and I was going to freak out, but I didn't. I just breathed through it, and it was gone in about probably around 5 minutes of just really deep meditation and breathing, and I passed through it, and I felt so amazing after that. Like, you cannot imagine the my heart just was like lifted in my chest. Like, the fact that I realized that, even perhaps a year ago, I would never have been able to handle that. That would have just freaked me the absolute hell out, because I would have thought I was dying and all that. But I breathed through it. I breathed calmly and collectively, and I passed through it. And then I realized, I can handle anything. Like, my soul, I've become more in touch with my soul in that period of time. And I can always use meditation and breathing to get through anything. So, yeah, I just felt $1 million after that point. Like, I was like, wow, it gave me the light and the ability to push through the darkness. And
that's
in
amazing.
a way, that was probably the most beneficial part of the entire experience, was also the darkest part, because it showed me that I could handle it. So that was my Mashi experience, first time. Really, really interesting. So many amazing insights. Like, I've still barely scratched the surface of some of it. I'm unpacking it all. But basically what I'm seeing right now is that we may be entering the 5D, 4D sort of dimensional split where higher souls are actually going to start elevating to other levels, and the lower souls are going to go down levels.
Yep, you got it. That's actually exactly what's going to happen. It's your choice ultimately at this point. It's like, do you want to continue with the archonic system of discipline and hatefulness and not having fun and not being your authentic self, and you like that lifestyle and you like being, less than elevated, then that's the path you're going to choose. But you're 100% right that we're at a 5D split right now, and you got to do what's best for yourself. If you feel like you want to elevate, then just elevate, and you can't go back to going back to sleep after waking up is going to just destroy your soul. The soul's all about feelings. So the thing is that in the archonic system, they make us repress our feelings and make us hide how we feel, and that actually destroys us. It's not normal. Like, if you really care about somebody, you have to let them know. If they don't like it or they're resistant to it, so be it. At least you expressed yourself and saved your own soul. So it's just kind of like you just have to be totally honest, and it's just like honesty is not valued in the 3D system.
Yeah.
So it's like it's just one of my biggest things that almost basically destroyed me was being so afraid of expressing myself to people I care about. I just felt like I was taught that it's just weird and you shouldn't be doing it. And it's just like, it can destroy you. So the soul's all about feelings. And that's where the 5D split's really coming in. It's like whether or not you want to salvage your feelings and you want to ascend, or you want to continue to mash them up into a nice, delicious little dark mass for less than caring entities. So it's like, yeah, you're totally spot on about the split. It's going on right now. It's a long time coming, honestly. That's probably why stuff like this is going to be considered more and more accepted in the mainstream, and not just considered like a rare example of a psychic ability, or the rare example, or just a movie. It's just like not everything's the movies. The movies will probably give you some distortions, but they will give you more information than a history book at this point.
Oh yeah, the amount of predictive programming and disclosure that we've seen in especially a lot of really recent Marvel films, and a lot of the big Netflix series too. I reckon Squid Game, for example, definitely disclosure of what the elites are doing. We've got Stranger Things, obviously, massive amount of disclosure in that show. So yeah, just have a.
Yeah.
I feel like there's nuggets of truth in everything. I reckon the elites probably get a kick out of just knowing that all this stuff they're portraying is fake, and everyone believes it to be fake is actually real. But
yep,
that's kind of part of their sense of humor, I guess.
Well, let me tell you something about the elites. How many elites do you think there actually are?
Not many. I mean, less than 10,000. Depends what kind of bracket term you use to classify elite, but.
Well, the elites are actually the souls, but let's just talk about the people who are the architects of this matrix. There are 13.
Yeah, right.
13 that managed to, through sheer knowledge and intellect, propagate this system for a very long time. Everything else is just a puppet.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me.
Well, I can get in. Yeah, I just feel like it's that's what's been going on. So, yeah, I have a lot more to say about that, but I just kind of have a feeling like I know what I should be saying, and what is like acceptable at this point. I mean, everything's acceptable. I mean, I could say a whole lot more, but the amount of people who are in charge of, like, the way the system has been is a lot less than we've been led to believe. So, and that's through programming. So yes, the soul can be programmed. You can upgrade your DNA via affirmations, but ultimately it is all about programming. And you can program yourself. You can say, no, I don't like this. I would rather have this. But yeah, so yeah, I have a whole lot more to say, but I think I'm just going to leave it there. Do you have more to say about the mushrooms or your trip and stuff like that, or?
Basically just use it as a way to better live your life. I don't want to do it again for months. Like, I'm totally fine with what I've been given for now because it's given me so much to unpack, so much to work on. And part of that is working with affirmations to achieve those goals. And something interesting, a connection between the whole subconscious brain, astral world connection and the physical one, is that in Darlington Moses's Astral Warfare, which I've just read, he explains the way that our subconscious body and mind is linked to our conscious and 3D realm one. And whatever we absorb into our physical and mental mind goes back to the astral and is essentially, like you explained, the mirror. And one of the things that we touched on during the trip was everything that I'm taking in is actually being absorbed subconsciously as well. Everything, every insight, every visual, every entity, all of that stuff is actually potentially upgrading my light body with new experiences, new insights that are going to slowly download back into the physical when they can be processed up there, you know? Like, there's probably so much more going on during that experience than just what's you're seeing in front of you. Because, like you were saying, there's so many different layers to everything happening, and we can only perceive very little of it, especially when we're only 3D and our minds are working in the third dimension. But when you start to upgrade, and I do believe when you take certain psychedelic substances, you are in that upgraded state where you're just more open to everything that's actually happening. Because this is a fractal reality. And we have a lower soul, higher soul, and all of those guys are experiencing this along with us in different dimensions that we in this one we can't perceive them, but they're there.
Well, eventually you can start to perceive them. Did I tell you? So this is why people were like, "You're basically a mushroom." Like, I've actually.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna name drop. Like, I don't think he'll care. The Metatron Luis on Twitter, he was like, it sounds like you naturally have like a mushroom like experience without taking them, because I'm telling you, I've seen the walls like actually pulsate. Like, I was just like, holy shit! Like, it turns like green and pink, and then the walls are pulsating, and I'm just like, holy shit. So I'm like, that I've gotten better control of it. So when you start to really, really balance yourself in the psychic realm, it doesn't look like that trippy. Eventually, you just kind of, it's like Hayao Miyazaki when they go into the spirit realm. That's what it's like. Like when Chihiro goes through that portal. You can go through portals, by the way. There will be signs and signals that show you. I often know I'm going through a portal when I see cars parked to the side and I see lights just flashing, like a heartbeat. So the heartbeat sort of leads the way. But she goes into this barn. I can't really remember, but she basically goes into the realm of spirits. And then she's walking amongst the spirits, and she feels like herself, when in reality that's depicting what the astral body will look like. I mean, I've gone into the astral realm, and you get to see some weird characters. Like, they do look like something out of, like a World of Warcraft, or like a, what's it called? Lord of the Rings type of thing.
Yep.
So it's just kind of like, and then you see objects appear out of nowhere. Like, it's really strange. So then the trips start to look less like a whole bunch of colors and pulsating stuff, and they start to look like the reality. It's your mind trying to, like, get used to it. It's a consciousness state that your brain projects. So once your brain gets used to it, you project. I don't see, like, this. I don't feel like I'm just gonna float into space. Well, I do feel like I'm floating, but, like, I don't see the pulsating walls or anything. Everything kind of goes together.
Through the floor. Essentially, well, you know what it is? Liquid, but yeah.
It's just so weird, though, that it's like this whole time I was just walking around not realizing. Well, here's the thing, is that, like, if we can read minds, and certainly people read ours, so that's why a lot of times people get taken advantage of, or that's why people get in trouble a lot who have good intentions, because I could be like, hey, how's it going? And then someone could be like, it's going well, but maybe you're not reading the, hey, it's going well. Maybe you're reading their soul, and maybe their soul's saying, hey, I'm feeling terrible right now, and everything's going poorly, and I just feel so vulnerable. So, and then you got, like, if you have a soul, you're going to give a shit, and you're not going to be, like, taking advantage of that. But then there are other people who will. So, that's why it's good to wake up fully in astral with affirmations. And because, like, you don't want that. You want to be insulated. The game is pretty difficult, actually, unless you have full awareness. So I did have those weird trippy experiences when I began, and my heart was vibrating, and so weird. But I feel like I'm so close to levitating sometimes. That sounds super strange, but that's, like, how light and airy I've become. Like, I'm not actually floating, but I actually feel, like, all the tension in my body and everything, just, like, when I switch to astral form. I know the difference between that. And when I go fully 3D, I hardly ever do that anymore, by the way. Like, I'm almost always in a state of that other consciousness.
Yep.
Because I don't really like the third density, because, like I said, fully third density is, you don't feel too great. Like, you actually do feel heavy. So it's just like, I reckon that you are already in the state of the 5D. It's just gaining that awareness to know the difference. But
yeah,
I do believe that you have that gift as well. So I can just tell. So
I'm definitely going to start doing the affirmations.
Do it so that you can segue in and then combine it with mushrooms. You know?
Yeah. And yeah, there's just so many insights to be gained from nature, the way that animals do things, the way that plants do things. It's got an intelligence to it that we don't even understand yet. And I believe that plants have a soul, just like animals and humans do. I believe that they do have a spirit to them, and that there's an intelligence there that we just cannot possibly understand yet. Like,
it's a lot simpler. Honestly, everything's a lot simpler than it seems. Like, there seems like there's a lot of things going on at once, but the reality of the things are pretty simple. Source consciousness, creation. We create our realities. We project our realities. There are a bunch of components that kind of go to it, like DMT that your brain produces, the concept of what is source. But the thing is that the biggest hurdle I've been trying to overcome is the concept that logic seems to go out the window the more you elevate. The harder it is to really understand how things work. Like, linear time is a big hoax.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that now. Like, the linear time thing is probably one of the worst psyops ever, because I'm learning, as long as we have these clocks in front of us, like, telling us what time it is, that's all it is telling us what time it is. It's not actually telling us the truth. So that's the linear time thing. Time is malleable. It's flexible, and physicists have proven this. Like, this is not just like, but it's just it's pretty simple. We're creators, but unfortunately, because creative source energy is very feeling based, getting control of your feelings and not doubting yourself and believing yourself is the biggest hurdle, because like the darkness comes from our negative thoughts, by the way. Like, ultimately, if we get sick or if we do anything, we're doing it to ourselves. We manifest the darkness. It's kind of like Raya, the Last Dragon or something. Remember, I don't know if you've seen that movie, when she said that the Droon come from the humans. That's pretty much, that's correct. So it's a paradox. It's complicated, but yet so simple. Source creation, we create our realities, and if we don't stay positive and stay in a state of bliss and work towards maintaining that, then we can end up hurting ourselves with our own negative thoughts. And we're told that negative thoughts and duality are totally great and good and healthy. Negative thoughts aren't healthy. Actually, they're exactly what will bring us down, and it's hard. The affirmations will clear a lot of that out, though. Come hell or high water. It's been the most difficult journey that I'm really glad that I took, and I'm taking right now, because it will determine whether or not you can really get what you want. Do you really want to build your own realm? Do you want to, progress? Then, yeah. But I can get into that another time. In terms of the states of consciousness, yeah, it's like a Hayao Miyazaki movie to me at this point. The realm of the spirits. And when they see you, a soul, awake in the realm of the spirits, it does throw them off.
Oh, I bet.
That was never supposed to happen, according to them, on this plane of existence. So, yeah, so it's a really good skill to have, is to know what state of consciousness you're in. And I'm still trying to learn. It's only been a couple of months since I've done the affirmations, but it's saved my life. I will say that.
Yeah.
Because I was starting to not do things that I didn't want to. I started to stop doing things that I loved. Like, I stopped playing video games. I stopped going places I wanted to go. And I was just like, it's all work, all work, all work. And that's, once you stop doing things that they're telling you shouldn't be doing because you should be succeeding, quote unquote, that's when you start to really go against the will of the soul. If you love, we're naturally inclined to be positive beings. Our natural inclination is to protect and take care of other positive beings. So it's just kind of like the will of the soul will never be malevolent. So it's just kind of like going against what it is you truly want to do purposefully, just to satisfy some arbitrary rule, is going to degrade your soul, because we manifest everything. We're creators. Even the show Nosferatu, that's a really cool show, because it shows what a strong creative can do. They can build their own realms. So, yeah, that's one part of it. I'll have to write up real well the next part of my experiences, but it's good that it gets out there that, like, the concept of basically psychic abilities and magic comes from upgrading the subconscious mind. They make it kind of seem like, the wizards and stuff like that can just kind of do stuff. No, actually in Harry Potter, they have to work at it, right? Like, they have to work their asses off to get the spells to work, so, yeah.
Yeah, they have to
pronounce that. The language really matters.
Oh, language is everything. It's, that's one of the main theme I got from the mushroom experience was language is failing us, and that there is a master language and a slave language. And I've been thinking about what that means ever since. Like, what does that mean, master language and slave language? But ultimately, it's probably just how you talk to your soul. Do you speak to yourself as a slave or as a master of your own destiny?
Yes. Oh, this is why you're so good, Jordan. You know your stuff. That's awesome. Oh my God, that was so well. I'm writing that down.
What are you turning yourself into with the way you speak about yourself? Are you becoming more of a slave to their system, or are you becoming more of a master of your own?
Right, and that's why
this is the world we're in right now. Everyone who's wears the mask, takes the vax, they've all basically agreed that they're a slave on one level or another. They've taken that role. And if this split is happening, you know, and all these people aren't going to get wiped out, and it's more of a conversion system over to a transhumanist virtual reality state where basically everyone's hooked into the metaverse 24/7. They're feeding them on intravenous bug juice, and it eventually basically becomes the Terminator or the Matrix. That's one path that could potentially happen or will potentially happen for them. Anyone who's chosen themselves as the master now chooses their own path forward, and that is all based on, like you just said, service to others, love to others, and helping each other grow.
Well, I will say, yeah, that's totally right. You're right on about that. I will say this. The agreement to being a slave is more to do with how you talk to yourself every single day. So if you're just like, oh, I suck at this, like you can joke around and be like, ha ha, I'm dumb. Like that's different because you know you're just joking. But if you genuinely wake up and you're just like, oh, I suck. Oh, I'm not going to accomplish this. Today's going to be bad. I'm bad. If you keep thinking these thoughts and saying it to yourself, that's the slave language. So as far as I'm concerned, based on what I've experienced, I wouldn't worry too much about the fear mongering with the vax and all that, because ultimately it's agreeing to take that vaccine isn't necessarily going to put you in a slave mentality. It's more to do with the way you talk to yourself, and that's why I'm doing. So when you talk to yourself with those affirmations, putting yourself at the highest possible level, which is like a creator, that's what will take you out of that slave mentality, and your thoughts will naturally start to go towards the positive. And you got to keep with the affirmations. Like even I start to doubt myself here and there, even at the level I'm at. So it's just kind of like that. It basically saying you have to hold yourself in high regard, and people might think, don't worry what people might think. People might think, oh, you're just so full of yourself. Well, it's just kind of like you have to be, because what's that's going to do, it's going to up your frequency to the point where you radiate love. And that love radiation is going to affect and upgrade the consciousness of people who are down on themselves. So, yeah, you're totally right on about that, but the way you put yourself into that slave mentality is saying, oh, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve that. So-and-so deserves that. Put yourself as a king or queen, and it's not gonna tear anybody else down. It's actually gonna uplift other people to say the same thing. There's plenty of room in the universe. We are universes, by the way. We're universes. There's plenty of room for all the kings and the queens. So it's not like, you're taking away, you're elevating people when you tell them, you know what, you are the best. It's true. We really are. Some of the stuff that I've experienced and seen has been absolutely incredible. So, but I will get into that. I need to organize more of that on another podcast. But you are right on about how language can screw you. Like it can definitely screw you. But I do genuinely want to put the public's mind at ease over this pandemic fear-mongering, the news fear-mongering. It's to the point where it's almost not worth watching the news, because instead of going outside and experiencing things and seeing things yourself as a creator and seeing your manifestations after your affirmations, you're just going to sit there and have a bunch of people who don't have your best interest in mind telling you what you think and how the world really is. And I know you've seen stuff happen around you, but as you start to affirm, you can start to clear out a lot of that negativity, but we can get into that another time. But it is the programming for sure. But definitely with those affirmations, you can listen to them. You can put like your earbuds in and listen to them, and then you can do other affirmations. Like I could be like listening to that, I could be like, I'm healing as I'm listening to them, the most blessed source. God, goddess, whatever you want to call yourself. Just put yourself in a position of a creator. That's all you need to really do. Then your soul will take care of you. where basically the 3D avatars are puppets on a string to your soul. So if your soul is unhappy, your soul is degraded, no matter how hard you try in your third dimension, you're going to sabotage yourself. So you need to pump up that soul. I listen to affirmations at least 45 minutes a day now, and more if I can. I'm telling you, that particular affirmation will wake you up fast, because it's going to remind your soul what it is. It's going to tell your soul, oh, this is what you are, and your soul's going to be like, holy shit, what was I doing? I gotta wake up and start cleaning up.
Definitely.
And souls are the most pure things in the world. Oh yeah, no, I think that's really good. We can get into that another time. That was a great podcast.
Oh, amazing. So good.
Yeah, awesome. I'll get this uploaded. I'll cut this part out. I'll stop recording. I'll cut this part out. No, let's end it, and I'll cut this segment out. So yeah, that was a great talk. I really enjoyed it. We will continue with this topic for sure.
Yeah, it goes so deep. Like, there's literally no end to how deep you can take this rabbit hole. But it's important, like, especially right now, that we're on that right mentality, and it's the master creator mentality, because we're seeing in the world what happens when everyone takes the slave mindset. So it's time to start waking up, realizing that we are gods and that we cannot keep putting our energy into false gods, whether they be those in the sky or those in person. We're just giving them more power. We need to take back our power and start giving it back to us, because we're all gods, essentially.
Yeah, we are. And that is 100% true. And we will continue to drive this point home in our future podcast, because it's the most important thing the souls need to know. But yeah, it was a great talk, Jordan. Thank you for podcasting. It was great.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
See you soon.
Right, and see you soon.